Jim Shoemaker, running for CD9. Okay. My history goes back quite a long ways. I've been a volunteer in almost every program we could come up with. I've been fighting in this fight for over 40 years. My first fight was in high school, supporting the pro-life movement. After that, it was the gun movement, and then the Constitution, because I owned a business. I owned a trucking company. Yeah, I was a trucker and a teamster. So I've worked all my life. My father passed away when I was 10, and from that on, I started working on a farm in South Dakota, running the harvest from Texas to Canada. I learned all about what it was with regulations. I watched that. I watched small businesses get literally put out of business by the regulation passed by state or federal law. You know, when we look at what we're doing and the people that we put into office, you can ask yourself, if they're in office, how did they make government smaller? Did they cut our taxes? And did they give us a better bang for our buck? Or did they just spend all the bucks? Because, you know, the challenge is in private business, a lot of these people that we are now employing in government are making more than a private citizen owning a business. I mean, other than a corporate president, who might be, you know, the millions, but we're sitting here now with government employees making money that you can't make in the private sector. This is insane, okay? Look, it's our money. We're the ones that send it there. We need to learn how to keep it by holding our elected officials accountable. And what we talked about earlier, which was brought up, I've been in all these protests before there were protests, especially against this mask mandate and COVID. I go back to the Capitol, I go back to when we were doing this, but even before that, I was at the Board of Supervisors years ago complaining about stuff. I was at the Farm Bureau when we were fighting vernal pools, telling farmers they had to take out land out of production to protect something that would, honestly, if you poured a glass of water on the ground, that was considered, you know, rivers of the United States. I mean, it's crazy. This battle, I've been in a long time. I've been a volunteer for hundreds of candidates that I've helped, worked with, or supported. And what I find is most end up getting into office and forget where they came from. So that's what got me to get into this. Because what I realized, as I said, you know, my faith and where I come from is the fact that character is before career. And you know what? We're all going to be accountable when we pass from this place. And I don't want my vote or what I say to somebody to be held against me. So what I'm looking is to go to Washington, look at the water issue, what was just talked about, because there's a federal project that can be dealt with. We need to protect our water here. We need to get government out of our way. We need to close the Department of Education. We need to close a number of departments in the federal government. We need to take a stand for, look at the gas, just what was brought up earlier. It isn't just the Keystone Pipeline. It is a number of pipelines and selling permits on federal land. They like to talk about 9,000 permits that are out there. Yeah, well, with the restrictions the federal government's put on, it doesn't matter how many permits you put out there if they're going to shut you down again. So the thing is here's California. We've got oil all over. We got a criminal in as governor. And each one of our elected officials, from city government to county government, has a responsibility. And that is, if you want to learn anything, read the book, The Lesser Magistrate, and you will find what your duty as an elected official is to protect the people that you represent. I'm Jim Shoemaker, CD9, running for that, and I don't know where I'm at now.
So once you're elected, how will you work to fix the invasion at the border?
Well, we're going to have a lot of unemployed people at the federal level, and I think we could just transfer them down to the border. Starting with Department of Education employees, I think there's 30,000 of them or more, and so I would be looking at transferring them, shut the border down, look at the people we currently have in the country illegally, see how we can vent them out, get that taken care of before we even consider putting the border open because of all the illegal activity, the drugs that are coming up. But you know what? It is the criminality of what's happening with our children and you know, child slavery and all the other stuff that's going on. And China pumping in tons of illegal drugs into our country. And that's another thing. Our national defense is part of our border system because it's not just the southern border. Our northern border is porous. They're pouring in all over the place. Time up.